Thanks for checking out WhичHouseRocks.com. In this first interview, Daniel Siwek will be talking with Bruce Kulick, former Kiss guitarist who also jammed with Billy Squier, Meat Loaf, Michael Bolton, and now he's rocking out with Grand Funk. And our little baby here dreams in the Witch House. Enjoy.
Yeah, I'm here with the one and only Bruce Kulick. We're here talking about Dreams in the Witch House, Bruce. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the project?
Well, actually, Chris Laney, who's the voice of the Brown Jenkin, interesting character, let me tell you. He's a very, very talented singer, writer, and he probably plays like every instrument that, you know, I did some work with him years ago in Sweden, and we've kept in touch, you know. He's like one of those guys, if I lived over there in Scandinavia, he'd be like one of my go-to guys for projects and things. Yeah. And when he approached me, along with Mike, you know, who's his LA guy, about being involved, I said, I'm in. You know, even though I'll be honest, I didn't know much about H.P. Lovecraft or this short story or what it would be, but I know he understood my talent and what I may be able to lend to the project. So I was very happy, and then when I heard the songs that I would be performing on, I was really thrilled, and especially the fact that it was able to balance a bit what I do on guitar, which was like not everyone knows me as an acoustic guitar player, but there was a highlight in Kiss, a song called Forever, that I did a solo that, you know, people use at weddings and stuff, the song, and they're very familiar with it. So between that song and then having the darker side of me, representing the mysterious light of, you know, something very, very scary and dangerous, which would be more like the Revenge era Kiss guitar work, you know. To have both of those elements of my guitar playing on this terrific project that I'm so excited to be with, I'm very proud of it, you know, and I'm real excited for them.
Let's, you know, you brought up those two tracks. Let's stop there for a second. That's great. The acoustic track, Nothing I Can Do, right? And, you know, Hot in the Shade, that was definitely a highlight of Hot in the Shade, Forever. And that's really when you kind of came, you know, you came into your own in the band before that, but you know, your playing on that album is superb, you know, and that track in particular is very memorable. So it's really cool to find, you know, for you to kind of find a niche in this project to bring some of that acoustic flair into it, right?
Yeah, I don't think it was an accident. I think Chris knew that, okay, this guy will nail this. And yet the song is much different than anything from a rock band, okay? And that's what I love about this, you know, this Witch House project to me. There's so many different styles of music, and which gave me obviously you know, two different sides to be showcased in, you know. But this song, I remember when I first heard it from Mike and Chris, I was like, wow, you know, I think I gave them a very high compliment, but they deserved it. I couldn't get the song out of my head, you know, and then I was obsessed with, I was almost like driven like one of the characters in this story to create the ultimate solo, you know what I mean? And for me, I was thinking of things, really big things, kind of like, you know, Andrew Lloyd Webber, you know, and the way the Phantom of the Opera has this like incredible song that everybody just knows, and I'm just real flattered to be part of what I think is one of the centerpiece songs in this work, you know.
Sorry, even with Forever, you kind of map out that's like, you know, some of your solos you let rip, but other ones you really map out specifically, right?
Yeah, I mean, that one came about really odd. I mean, you know, I think I was ready to do an Eddie Van Halen lead guitar solo in the song, and then Paul Stanley just said, like, that's not what I hear. You remember this Zeppelin song? And by the time he went to, remember Tower Records? By the time he went to Tower Records to bring back something to play me, you couldn't go online and just like, here it is, you know, and play it from your smartphone. Back in 1989, 1990, I already nailed, you know, half of the solo, you know, and he, you know, and then we just finished it up. Fortunately, this one wasn't painful at all, you know, and Mike came by the studio, and right before I was ready to get into the evil guitar playing, and I know he got a chance to watch that. But I was really, really happy to be able to bring the best out of me for this work here.
So, you know, in Revenge, you were working with Bob Ezrin, right? Which obviously must have been a kind of a privilege and a pleasure for you. Do you think that Andrew Lloyd Webber, Bob Ezrin thing, kind of, you know, like the way things are really, almost Dick Wagner also, right?
I mean, look, Bob is one of those really brilliant producers. In fact, the guy that worked with me on the track that Mike met, Jeremy Rubolino, is actually his cousin.
Wow.
And it's no accident that I work really well with him.
Yeah.
And he gets it too. He's actually more of a film scorer, you know, and maybe in the future he'll be involved with things with Mike in the future and all. But, you know, there's no doubt that I've learned a lot from a guy like Bob Ezrin, and he's always been involved with theatrical things too.
Definitely.
Alice Cooper,
Yeah.
you know, even if you think about Pink Floyd, The Wall, you know, where records have a concept.
Lou Reed, Berlin.
Yeah. And for me, and even his work with Kiss was more like bringing them up a level.
Absolutely.
It wasn't, even though they did The Elder, which was before me, and not, you know, yeah, it's a great record, but it wasn't commercially, you know, huge. But that opportunity, I had to work with him. I absorbed from everybody in the same way that I've now learned something. I heard of H.P. Lovecraft, fortunately.
Yeah.
And there are some people that haven't yet, but they will. But not really knowing why people still are carrying the legend on of him. And now after being involved with this, I'm a fan now. You know what I mean? So it's really, really kind of a great thing to bring rock and roll together with a great story like that. And I see it all either on the stage or maybe down the road, who knows, it could be on the big screen like this.
That would be really cool. The other track, Signum Crucis,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that really has you kind of going unholy on
Yes,
us, right?
yes.
And I really feel as a fan of that era Kiss too, obviously I'm a fan of all eras, maybe not the most recent one, but still. You know, you really coming into your own and really going to that next step.
Right.
And a lot of people don't really know how much you really matched it. I mean, went even further on Carnival of Souls. So
Right.
I hear some of that sound here.
Absolutely.
Right?
I'm so proud that I'm able to, and I don't toot my horn much, okay, but I'm still able to channel some stuff that I was doing in like 92 and then 95, which is when we did Carnival of Souls. But I got exactly what Chris was looking for, and Mike happened to have been there to watch it, which was kind of funny. Because I think, you know, that take was almost, I think it was one take, you know what I mean? The one we used.
Really?
Even though we might have just started with some effect that I found on the guitar, you know. And in fact, even just recently I had the conversation with him, you know, like, okay, I got that I had to represent something evil, but please describe to me, in your mind, what it is in the story that's evil. And he explained about the light and stuff like that. And it really, I didn't have to know that to do it. I know what I needed to serve up, which was something really aggressively dark and scary. And I'm not saying that everything on Carnival of Souls or Revenge represented that guitar-wise, but certainly all the guitar solos on those two, my last couple of really Kiss, you know, rock albums, had to have, the solos had a commitment, you know what I mean? Right. And if the song needed to be aggressive, there you go. I was laughing listening to the entire thing, hearing the word unholy said a few times, which of course, you know, is an important element of telling this story. But I couldn't help not connecting it to the fact that it was like a really important song, the lead-off track of Revenge. So I just think it's like perfect that I'm involved with this, you know what I mean? It's not just because I know one of the writers, you know what I mean? There seems to be a cosmic reason to lend my guitar talent to this.
Well, also you talking about like, you know, theatrical rock, there's and concept rock. There's such a long history of it. You know, for a second, let's talk about, you know, Meatloaf. You were with the Meat.
Yep.
And Bad Out of Hell,
Yep.
you know, you were on that tour.
Yep.
And that, you know, that's basically musical rock and roll, right? So you already have a prehistory of that, you know?
I find it really ironic. I know when I grew up, you know, which, you know, the bands like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin were the most important things to me, Cream and The Who, but, you know, the whole British invasion of rock and roll. But, you know, like I found like the first really professional band after playing with like a couple of top 40 artists, the first big opportunity I had to tour and be on stage and be on Saturday Night Live and play in front of, you know, 100,000 people and things like that, was Meatloaf, okay? And it was a freak show in a way, you know, it was a theatrical thing. I didn't quite understand it at first, but Jim Steinman wrote these amazing songs that were all based much more in a theater type of thing. And there he had the, you know, Meatloaf, that, you know, kind of like character almost, you know, embodied in a tuxedo, way overweight, you know what I mean, and nearly dying on stage every day, you know.
Right.
And background singers, and no, we didn't really have a production, but yeah, it was theatrical, okay, and that was the only way I was able to understand it. And then years later, being in KISS, and even though the makeup wasn't on during my 12 years, we still always put on a huge show. And in a way, we were suited up to do a killer rock and roll show. And there was always a theme to the stage, and there was always the bombs and the lasers. And I believed in the music even when we did some special events that were only in clubs without all the theatrics,
Sure.
But KISS, I learned a lot, again. Look, entertainment and music, there's music, and then there's, of course, the show, okay?
Right.
And it doesn't matter how far you want to take that, it's entertainment. And if people are expecting to be entertained, I think that's how Gene and Paul realized, we should put makeup on. We're not really as good as Led Zeppelin, so we'll do that, and hence here's this magical moment in their brain that becomes a brand. I mean, it's like as big as Coca-Cola, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, Bruce, I was going to ask you, obviously, the makeup was off and Gene didn't spit blood anymore, but he was still spitting fire, and the whole show was still completely cued to where the fire bombs were going to go off. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that element of it.
Well, there was only one little part of my years in KISS where Gene kind of like was definitely dressed wrong, okay? And he knows it too, the Asylum era,
Yeah.
But Gene still, I mean, first of all, the whole concept of him, he's such a fan of horror and all of that world. And he really did, kind of like create his character based on Lon Chaney and things that he grew up with, And he was able to take that and become the demon or rocker, all right? And there were, like I said, except for those couple of, years where he like kind of lost his identity in the hair metal that KISS kind of represented, even though we did it our way. But then he got back on track, dressed tough. He was always that very aggressive performer on stage, and then there he is spitting fire, and there he is singing a song Unholy during my years. I mean, he still represented the demon side of KISS in my era without the makeup, even
Absolutely, and I think obviously grunge came back and kind of lit a little torch under the band's butt. And they got gritty and stuff like that again. But I was going to ask you, like, even during that era, even you came in on the Animalized tour and Asylum. Not every song was about getting laid. Even like songs like what was it, Thrills in the Night, or While the City Sleeps, or whatever. Gene has his other side that where he taps into his favorite horror concepts. Or his favorite kind of noir novels or whatever, So, I was just wondering also for you growing up, and the band was such a big fan of Alice Cooper and Arthur Brown and things like that, there were always like precedents of kind of horror rock, Did you have any kind of, growing up, were you getting into that stuff at all?
It's a great question because, I mean, for me, and I have been involved with horror conventions, being a former KISS member and everything. And I have to admit that, I saw The Exorcist, for example, okay? It scared the hell out of me, okay? I came home that night and the door to my co-op building, which is an apartment building, the door broke where that would have a heavy spring. You'd have to like really push this door open. The night after seeing that movie, the door flies open because obviously the whatever the mechanics of the door was broken.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to have a heart attack, okay? Because I thought it was possessed, I don't do great with the horror stuff, okay? There are certain movies even currently that I know are really creepy. The one with the little kid that looks like he's crazy in the TV or whatever. I was much more into sci-fi. Okay. Now there's a part of sci-fi that gets into that a little bit when the creature is really horrible and everything, and the aliens are possessing you. And the alien movies, I could watch that kind of a horror film better than the one that's set up to literally just scare you all the time. With the devil and all that. And I tell you, that stuff scares me so much in a way that I'm not attracted to it. But I get the world. I do enjoy it to a point, but I don't want to expose myself completely to it. But there is a connection between rock and roll and horror. Absolutely. Okay. Although, like I say, I like to lean more on the sci-fi thing. So like whenever I've been at any of those conventions, and sometimes I go as a fan too, there's people I want to meet. I'm running over to the Star Wars, Star Trek, and all that, and the guy that looks like the Walking Dead, I'm like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not so much.
Yeah.
You know, the zombie movies don't bother me actually, because I know they're fake. You know, but the ones that get in your brain and gonna eat your heart out. You know what I mean? I'd probably be scared watching this. You know what I mean?
But you know, you mentioned Scandinavia, and you know, Scandinavia is such a mecca in Sweden.
Yes.
Of like kind of dark gothic metal.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And this album really has an element of like that thrash, dark metal to it. You know. And your sound freaking fits right in
exactly.
there, you know?
When I listened to it last night in context, you know, I was kind of like, I have that in me? You know, I thought I was a very calm and nice guy. You know what I mean? But I kind of like represented on that lead guitar solo, you know, something unholy and evil, you know? So, but look, we all have things in us, you know, and how you tap into that. I'm glad I can express it on my guitar rather than wanting to literally rip someone's head off.
Or do a satanic mass.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm aware, and I have so many Scandinavian fans in that part of the world that are probably very aware of Kiss is like commercial compared to some of that music. You know what I mean?
But there's still the seed, part of the seed of that.
Yes.
As much as people, you know, they put Kiss in a different category, Slayer still was taken from Kiss.
Right. No.
And all those bands that put on makeup were still taken from Kiss.
I'll mention
Merciful
Lordi,
Fate,
who are huge over
definitely.
there. You know, from Finland, the other country we didn't mention.
Yeah.
And I've worked with that band and Tommy, who's the creator of that, and he is so into the, you know, this horror world. You know, and yet, you know, there he is, you know, at my house co-writing a song, you know, Call Off the Wedding, which was very Alice Cooper, you know, with Jeremy, the engineer producer friend, and I look at him like I know him as the person, and I would call him the rabbi, because he looked like a rabbi without his outfit.
Yeah.
So we all, I think, you know, human beings are balanced that way. You know what I mean? Obviously, the story, you know, really, you know, again deals with the good and evil, and this, you know, what I learned from H.P. Lovecraft was obviously this other, like, kind of like other dimensions and things, and then understanding it, and it's quite fascinating and totally connected to rock and roll.
And also that's where your liking of sci-fi kind of intersects with horror, because there's a lot of sci-fi, you know.
Right, exactly.
And obviously Lovecraft, you know, influenced a ton of metal bands,
Yes.
you know, from Blue Oyster Cult and
That's what I'm
and
understanding
Iron
now,
Maiden
yes.
and Metallica, you know. Do you know anything about this album being mixed in Polar Studios in Sweden?
No.
Yeah, that's a crazy little tidbit right now that I just found out.
Right.
That obviously, you know, that's where Zeppelin did.
Oh, okay. I know it's a famous studio for
Yeah.
some of the, you know, like really classic stuff.
Yeah, ABBA did a bunch of their
Right,
albums there,
right.
and Zeppelin did In Through the Outdoor over there. You know,
Well, Chris
so,
only works at the best places, you know.
right. so you know, tell me about, like, you know, further involvement with this project. Where would you like to see it?
Well, obviously, I'm not only you know, a performer on it, I'm a fan. Okay, and as Mike and Chris know, I'm going to talk it up and put my energy towards hoping that other people can enjoy it the way I do. You know, and you know, I'd love to see it. Obviously, you know, hit a home run and get. I know how hard this business is. There's so many great ideas, and I always remind the people that want to see success out of their you know, comes with a thought, and then how many the process of getting it done is endless, you know, and I know how hard they've worked on it, how hard it must be for them. But even the Beatles were like rejected. I mean, the greatest band ever, you know what I mean? You know, were turned down by everybody, you know.
Yeah.
You just got to find that one person that believes to take it to that next big level, you know. I think it's there, you know, and hopefully we can see it on the stage, and hopefully we can see it beyond that, you know.
It'd be really cool. I mean, you know, right now it's a double live LP, album, CD, whatever.
Right.
But if they actually did put it on a show, you know, you could come on as a special guest.
I'd
and
love
shred,
that.
right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Or even do like
there'll be
the
the
acoustic
very
solo.
sensitive moment, and then
Yeah.
there'll be the evil moment.
Right?
Yeah.
That'd be-
And I can get my guitar skills behind all of the music on this thing. You know, in fact, I was talking with Mike about, since I only was exposed to the two tracks that I actually did the solos on, I liked that they were very varied, and, you know, kind of even a shuffle tune, you know. There were different elements, you know. One Def Leppard could have done the song maybe, you know.
Right.
And that's great. And I think if you think of some of the bands that we mentioned and their famous works, from Kiss to Pink Floyd to Alice Cooper, not every song is 18, not every song is, you know, a mellow tune from Pink Floyd. Some of them are the, you know, have that dark edge, and obviously Kiss, yeah, Kiss, you have Unholy too, you know. You know, every time I look at you, you know,
which is another similar solo as Forever. Not similar, but similar
it's
in
acoustic,
feel.
It was a sweeter solo, you know. So there's so many elements here that work in my world, and I don't know, my fans like what I like, so hopefully they'll dig into the Wish House.
Nothing I can do.